Okay, great. Thanks very much. I want to spend the last 15 minutes on moving towards what the EU should do with this, about this.
You offered an opportunity for the left.
Yes, how can I now say no to you? Please
Right side.
be concise in your question. The floor is all yours.
But it's actually about what you just about to announce. I'm Peter Dröll, I work in DG Research and Innovation, and I'm a fan of Frugal Innovation. And I brought it to my program committee, as a study, and there was a lot of support. But in practice, it's very difficult how to do it. Because if you want to work on a new energy storage system, if you need a clean room to do nano deposition, or to work on a new advanced material, it is going to be super expensive. So we have a lot of goodwill, a lot of understanding also, and I think it's brilliant what you did, the connection with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the financing gap, inclusiveness, but how?
Okay. Thanks very much. That was indeed what I was going to... But it's much better that you say it, because you are on the inside in the policy-making arena. And I find it quite good to know from you already that there is this sort of sense that, yes, we should do something with this. And now we are facing the question how to do this properly. So that brings me again to the panelists. And this is a question that we did discuss in advance, so I assume that they have some ideas. I would like to start with Madeleine, then Anne-Christine, and then Navi at the end on how to bring this into the Horizon Europe agenda. If we agree that it is a thing that is worthwhile pursuing, but we also realize that it doesn't easily fit within the existing boxes, so to speak. How can we make that happen?
Great question. Okay, a few ideas. So I think thinking about calls themselves, so how calls are put together, I would suggest that for frugal innovation, it might be important to really focus on outcomes, but be very open to a range of ways of achieving those outcomes. So it could be through new technology development, or it could be through doing something existing cheaper, or it could be through coming up with a completely different way of doing things. That's what we quite often see in frugal innovation examples. And also a point that we've, I think, all emphasised is that frugal innovations in practice are a product of a combination of different types of innovation. So they may not include actually much new technology development at all. It could be about recombining existing technologies with business model innovations and so on. So again, being open to that type of innovation, I think, is important. And I've noticed in the Horizon Europe orientations document, which of course I've read from page 1 to 142 or whatever, that there's a sense that there may be some shift, I think, or comments about the balance of how the Commission funds different technology readiness levels, which I read as maybe a bit of an openness to funding more downstream as well as upstream development. So I think that would be positive. I think also in terms of different funding instruments, it's worth exploring how those could be used to support frugal. So far, there's a Horizon Prize for affordable technology, and I think prizes have a lot of scope here to bring forward new types of actors and combinations of actors, which again will be really important in frugal innovation. I'd suggest that in order to target those to really bring forward organisations and people who are not already working in this space, it's quite important to think about the size of the prizes and how they can maybe be stage-gated so that there are smaller amounts of money earlier in the stage to kind of allow people to develop proofs of concept, and that really helps bring people into the process. And then one other, I mean, I've got lots of other points, but one other thing that I think is really key is the role of brokers and intermediaries in bringing together different types of players. And Peter, actually, you might want to comment on this, because that's essentially what Centre for Frugal Innovation in Africa does. Yeah. But in our study, we noted that there were lots of companies that are developing technologies are not thinking first and foremost about frugal applications of that technology. As you said, they're thinking about higher income markets and developing the getting their money back on their investment and so on. But and they don't necessarily understand what the range of applications could be. But universities and some other hubs are in quite a good position to be able to spot those opportunities and also broker relationships between those technology developers, social innovators, potential users, NGOs who might fund things, all of that type of thing. So supporting intermediaries and brokerage, I think, is really important.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Christine.
Obviously, when I think of frugal innovation, I don't not just think about Africa, India, developing country. I'm thinking the world. For me, there is especially when we talk about circular economy, there is no borders anymore. Yeah. We can't ship our waste abroad. That's a good thing. We shouldn't have done it to start with. But I would say that having more partnership between the different initiatives at the EU level, so the people that work on the circular economy working with the DG Research Innovation, really having this combination, the same way that when we do project, we take the social aspect, we take the companies, we take the sustainability. We don't try to have barriers because this ecosystem that will make a difference. So to have maybe as many bridges as possible with one same objective will be, in my mind, quite useful. Now, there are things also that could force things to happen, right? So, for instance, one that I was mentioning earlier, some of the issues related to the recyclability of material today is the traceability. So there are so many projects, innovation projects, that are funding recycling technologies. That's great. But if right from the beginning you do not fund eco-design projects, you don't develop, you have an aligned or one standard in terms of traceability, at the end you can have as many technologies as you want, you will not have solved the problem. So it's really to understand what it takes right from the beginning and spend the money where it should spend at the right time. And to me, there are a lot of activities also. So there is the different, standards between the countries. The importance of having one standard. If you go in France or in England or in Spain, is even the collecting system is not the same. Everybody's confused. So how do you want circular economy to work and allow for frugal innovation in that context if there is not even alignment there? So there are very practical things to be done that will accelerate the development of frugal innovation supporting circular economy, in my mind.
Okay, thanks. Then Navi,
Sure.
how do we address this?
Yeah, I was thinking there were so many things I want to say, but I want to start with a very personal note. So I'm 49 now. So when Horizon 2030 completes, I will be 60. So, well, yes, it's coming fast. So I was thinking, like in the last couple of years, so what would be the best way I can, I can travel around the world, which I do, talking about frugal innovation, doing, conference keynotes, etc., write books. But I thought that maybe the best way I can make it happen is by reaching out to the next generation. So that insight led me to get involved in some interesting projects, and that's the way I'm going to answer your question, is maybe what Horizon 2030 should do is focus maybe 50% of the budget on how to get the youth involved in this process. So I'm going to give you one example and then go the concrete first, and then I'll give you why this is a very interesting example to replicate and scale up. It's a project called the STEAM School. The STEAM stands for, as you know, Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, Mathematics. It's a partnership between the French government, French embassy in India, and a makerspace, which is, a fab lab in India. And what they do is every year we bring together, I'm on the advisory board of this project, 100 entrepreneurs, scientists, students from India and France to Mumbai in India in a makerspace. And over a 2-week period, we help them co-create frugal solutions to 5 of the SDGs. So the idea is, we take them to, the slums to understand the social problems. They go back, and in a cross-cultural way, they try to solve what I call the problems without borders. It's the SDGs, right? We have a president in America who thinks we have American problems, but actually we have global problems, right? So I live in California, we have water scarcity. obesity, which is the same issue as, in Africa or in India. So this is an interesting project where over a 2-week period, what I noticed with my own eyes is essentially how the kids are they're, anywhere from 14 to 35, and they're really passionate about solving these, big social ecological issues in this kind of team environment. And the way it works is, very quickly, so they do the prototypes, show them, and then they can scale them up into, working solutions. And then based on the success of that, this year we did a sister program in Paris. It's called the STG School, in partnership with the CRI, Centre de Recherche Interdisciplinaire, which is a transdisciplinary research university, the first in Europe, based in Paris. And that's the key term. I want to kind of weave into the theory of what I'm saying, transdisciplinary, and that answers your question. We should start operating in silos when it comes to funding research. I think this is going to cause a lot of problems. And so this whole week, I've been traveling, and this keep coming. The way I would kind of, a synonym to frugal innovation for me is systemic innovation. We have to start thinking as systems now. And I think that's exactly how I was thinking is just very quickly, imagine that, let's kind of look at this team project, right? It hits like check, check, check with many areas. Of course, science, technology, education, boom. 50% of the participants are women, girls. Gender parity, check. Right? It focuses on social ecological issues, check, check. Right? And doesn't cost much either. Right? So it's frugal as well, right? So I think this is how we should think more and more. I know that this is more a science, innovation, research-focused conference, but maybe you could become the anchor, the keystone of this ecosystemic perspective.
Yeah. No, I think I like your response that you can't solve this within the research and innovation domain alone.
Enabler,
yeah. You need to look bigger, and you need to make use of the new generation that will look at this differently anyway. So
and they're the mindset. They kind of...
Yeah. So it's old grey men like me who are holding up the change, perhaps. Yeah. You wanted to add something really small but urgent to this.
Because it adds directly to the circular economy. Sven Schade from DG Environment. I remember a fierce fight some months ago between different DGs, where the understanding of innovation really played a fundamental role, and also for frugal innovation. It was exactly on what you said, what is missing. The data of embedded information on the product in order to make them recyclable. The idea arose in different departments to launch this. The mindset was, this is a great future market for a European possible unicorn. And some people were sitting there and saying, please, not this. This has to be a database, a software which goes into Creative Commons in order to enable frugal innovation that many different people can develop and test new services. Guess who lost?
Yeah. All right. Apparently that leads to another cry.
Now,
Yes.
just an example from India. Well, I think it was a great idea. Well, we already exchanged here with Peter, so something for the next program. The idea that you bring together then the two groups, but we actually already have a pilot bringing together the business incubators and accelerators from Europe and India, the innovators themselves as well. And this is the way really to work together. And I guess one of the results could be very clearly also frugal innovations.
Okay, well, I don't think we could have hoped for this kind of interaction at this stage, at the end of a 1-hour discussion, where people from different parts of the organization are starting to discuss how to help bringing this more centrally into the agenda. Nicholas, would you like to say something? Nicholas is actually from the DG Research and Innovation, helping us to have set this up.
I represent the Plan C because the colleague who is really behind this was not able to be with us today. But I think this was a very rich session. To some extent, I think it confirms some of the aspects, issues we have put in the Horizon Europe, but it also, I think, points the way forward to few more ways. Certainly the systemic innovation.
Yeah.
incidentally, we do have an all-round approach to circular economy in Horizon Europe. It's not just about no waste.
Okay, good. So we can conclude on issues of transdisciplinarity and on more comprehensive approaches and on sort of making this kind of mindset perhaps the default. And we're not going to be alarmist about it, but we do all seem to agree that this is an urgent agenda. With that, can I have a round of applause for the very disciplined and good speakers? Okay, thank you very much. This was the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you.